Private Alina Rose stumbled through the mud of Fort Keller's obstacle course, her boots sinking deep as laughter followed her. She looked like any other fragile 18-year-old recruit, too small for her uniform and too overwhelmed to belong. The other trainees towered over her, their confidence echoing in every stride. To them, she was just another kid destined to wash out. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez barked orders, his voice sharp enough to slice the morning air. The obstacle course separates soldiers from those who should have stayed home with mommy. Nervous chuckles spread through the ranks, but Alina stood rigid, her green eyes fixed forward. She knew what they thought of her, but she had survived far worse than their sneers. When her turn came, she pushed forward with silent determination. The hurdles were easy enough, but the rope climb burned her arms and drew taunts from the sidelines. She forced her way to the bell at the top, the laughter only fueling her grit. The wall climb nearly broke her. At barely 5 feet tall, she scraped and clawed her way up on the 7th desperate attempt. The tunnel crawl left her caked in mud but moving faster than the bulkier recruits, her small frame an advantage for once. On the slick balance beam, she slipped, teetered, then recovered through sheer willpower. But the final 8-foot wall defeated her. She launched upward, fingers clutching the ledge, only to slide back down and hit the ground hard. The recruits erupted in laughter, and Rodriguez marked her down with disdain. "Your time is pathetic," he barked. "You won't last a week." Alina dusted herself off, face burning but eyes steady. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The rest of the day blurred into weapons drills, lectures, and the isolation of mess hall lunches where no one dared sit near her. She became invisible, the quiet misfit no one cared to know. Yet beneath that silence, she carried memories and skills no one here could imagine. By afternoon, recruits lined up for medical inspection. Alina kept her uniform tight, dreading the moment she'd be told to undress. When her turn came, she stripped with mechanical calm. The room buzzed with routine until her bare shoulder was revealed. A black tattoo, sharp and unmistakable, glared back at the staff. A triangle split by a lightning bolt. Dr. Harrison froze mid-sentence. That's Shadow Element 12. His voice was hushed, carrying weight the recruits couldn't comprehend. The room went silent, eyes locked on Alina. Moments later, General Marcus Webb himself walked in during an inspection tour. He spoke casually with the colonel until his eyes fell on the tattoo. Color drained from his face. That unit was disbanded. It went black. The recruits whispered in confusion. Rodriguez, once so smug, stood rigid and silent. Webb stepped closer, voice low but cutting through the room. "Who are you?" Alina met his stare with unflinching calm. "Private Alina Rose, sir." It wasn't enough. The general's eyes lingered on the mark, fear and recognition blending in his expression. Colonel Davidson quickly intervened, suggesting the matter be taken to his office. Webb nodded reluctantly, but before leaving he ordered, "Private Rose, report after your exam. We have questions." For the rest of the recruits, Alina was no longer invisible. Whispers followed her every step. Was she a spy? A plant? A legend? By dinner, the mess hall buzzed with theories. She ate alone, but the air crackled with wary respect. When Rodriguez summoned her to the colonel's office, his tone was no longer mocking. "Private Rowe," he said stiffly, "the colonel requests your presence." The stairs that followed her march across the base felt heavier than any pack. Inside, Colonel Davidson and General Webb waited, their faces carved with suspicion. "How did you acquire a Shadow Element 12 tattoo?" Webb demanded. Alina's response was calm, almost casual. "A local artist, sir. Said it looked unique." Webb slammed the lie aside. "Don't insult me. That symbol never appeared in any book or parlor. It represents one of the most classified units in modern history." Davidson, lost, asked for context. Webb reluctantly explained. Shadow Element 12 had been a joint operations unit, running missions too dark for official record. It had vanished after a mission went wrong, its existence buried. The implication hit the colonel hard. "Are you suggesting this recruit has a connection to that unit?" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting," Webb said, eyes never leaving Alina. "And until we know how, she's not setting foot in regular training again." Alina listened silently, then replied with deliberate precision, "Sir, I cannot answer that question." The words landed like a grenade. Silence filled the office. Webb leaned back slowly, eyes narrowing with a mix of suspicion and respect. "Then you'll be placed on administrative hold until I get answers," he declared. "You won't leave this base. And Private Rose, consider carefully whether silence serves you here." Alina simply nodded. She had expected this moment for years. The days that followed at Fort Keller turned into a storm of whispers and speculation. Alina was pulled from training and confined to administrative quarters. The recruits who had mocked her just a week ago now stared at her with hushed awe, retelling the story of General Webb nearly collapsing at the sight of her tattoo. The details shifted with each telling. Some swore she was an undercover agent, others claimed she was the daughter of a fallen general. But the truth remained locked behind her steady silence. Webb's investigation moved swiftly but cautiously. Phone calls to Washington were met with walls of classification. Files reviewed by authorized personnel contained blacked-out pages, code names, and fragments of missions no one would confirm. Even Webb, a man with decades of clearance, was left piecing together shadows. 4 days later, a secure message arrived from the Pentagon. Webb called Alina back into Davidson's office. His demeanor had shifted. Gone was the suspicion, replaced by a measured respect. "Private Rose," he began, "your presence here is not an accident. You are part of a transition program, designed to integrate individuals with specialized backgrounds into conventional military service." The explanation was deliberately vague, but the meaning was clear. Her tattoo was no mistake. Her enlistment was sanctioned at levels higher than anyone at Fort Keller could reach. Colonel Davidson blinked, struggling to process. "So she's starting over?" Webb nodded. "Yes. From this point forward, evaluate her as any other soldier. Her past is not your concern." For the first time in days, Alina felt the weight on her shoulders lift. She offered a respectful nod. "Understood, sir." Word of Webb's conclusion spread more slowly than the rumors had, but the effect was dramatic. By the time Alina returned to the obstacle course, the recruits who had laughed at her failure now watched in silence. This time, she moved with precision and speed. She scaled walls, swung over ropes, and crossed the balance beam without a slip. By the time she landed from the final wall, Rodriguez could only shake his head in disbelief. "Outstanding performance, Private Rowe," he said, voice stripped of sarcasm. "That's what I expect from soldiers." The recruits' whispers turned from mockery to awe. Some insisted she had faked her first attempt to stay hidden. Others swore she was testing them. Whatever the truth, Alina didn't explain. She simply trained harder. Over the following weeks, she distinguished herself in every field. Her marksmanship was precise, her tactical decisions sharp, and her ability to teach others quietly earned her the trust of her peers. Where once she sat alone at meals, recruits now approached with questions. Jenkins, the loud recruit from Alabama, humbled himself one evening at dinner. "Rowe, could you help me with night navigation? I can't get my bearings out there." "Heard you nailed it first try." She studied his face, searching for mockery. Finding only sincerity, she nodded. "Stop relying only on compass bearings. Learn the land. Terrain features don't lie in the dark." Her explanation was patient, her tone calm, and before long, other recruits sought her out for advice. The girl they had called Tiny became the quiet center of gravity for the unit. Even Rodriguez noticed the change. During group exercises, Alina's influence pushed her squad to cooperate instead of compete. Injuries were caught early, mistakes corrected without humiliation, and results steadily improved. After one particularly grueling field mission, Rodriguez addressed them. "Outstanding teamwork. I saw leadership out there, the kind that doesn't need stripes to command respect." His eyes flicked briefly toward Alina, in spoken acknowledgement in the gesture. When Webb finally departed Fort Keller, he left strict instructions with Davidson to keep him updated on Alina's progress. His interest lingered like a shadow, a reminder that her story was bigger than anyone here could fully grasp. As the weeks passed, Alina's reputation reshaped itself entirely. No longer the weak link, she became the recruit others measured themselves against. Her calm efficiency set a tone that pushed the group to perform better, and her quiet willingness to help built an unlikely camaraderie. During night maneuvers, she guided confused teammates without embarrassing them in front of instructors. In long marches, she adjusted packs and redistributed weight to prevent injuries. Her guidance was subtle, but the effect was profound. Recruits who once sneered at her now sought her advice with genuine respect. Rodriguez took notice. After one field exercise where Alina's interventions kept her squad together, he called her into his office. "Rowe, your performance has been exceptional. You've got options. Ranger school, intel work, even officer candidate training. Any of those doors could open for you." Alina listened politely but shook her head. "I appreciate it, Sergeant. But I came here for basic training. I need to finish what I started before making choices." Rodriguez studied her for a moment, then nodded. "That's the right mindset. One step at a time." Her answer spread quietly among the staff. She wasn't chasing prestige or shortcuts, she was building from the ground up. By the final weeks of training, Alina was no longer just passing exercises, she was excelling. She ran the obstacle course in one of the best times recorded that season, her once ridiculed frame moving with lethal precision. She led her squad through combat simulations with strategies instructors described as unusually advanced. Even skeptics admitted she carried herself like someone with experience far beyond her years. Graduation day arrived with crisp uniforms, marching boots, and the pride of accomplishment. Families filled the stands, cheering as recruits stood in formation. Alina's family wasn't there, but no one asked why. The respect she had earned made her privacy unquestioned. Rodriguez delivered the keynote. Today you stand as soldiers. The army needs those who adapt, those who lead by example. I've watched this class grow into exactly that. His gaze swept the formation, pausing for just a heartbeat on Alina. When orders were distributed, Colonel Davidson personally handed Alina hers. Private Rowe, you've been assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division, Fort Bragg. The murmurs among recruits were immediate. The 82nd was one of the Army's most prestigious conventional units. Davidson leaned closer, lowering his voice. I offered you other paths. But this one will give you the ground-level experience you wanted. You'll earn every stripe the hard way. Alina nodded, steady and certain. That's what I want, sir. Jenkins, the same recruit who once mocked her, found her after the ceremony. Rowe, I owe you an apology. You taught me more than I expected to learn here. Thanks for proving me wrong. Alina smiled faintly. We all had things to learn. That's what soldiers do, help each other figure it out. When the buses lined up to carry the new soldiers to their assignments, Alina climbed aboard with her pack slung over one shoulder. She looked back at Fort Keller, the obstacle course where she had fallen, the training grounds where whispers had turned to respect. What had begun in humiliation had ended in transformation. The tattoo on her shoulder remained, a reminder of a past shrouded in secrecy. But it no longer defined her in the eyes of those around her. What mattered now was the soldier she had chosen to become. As the bus rolled toward Fort Bragg, Alina stared out the window, reflecting on what she had learned. Starting over was possible. Respect wasn't granted, it was earned. And even in the shadow of secrets, a future could be built on persistence and quiet strength. Her journey at Fort Keller was over. The next chapter, the airborne, the field, and the unknown, was just beginning.